Daf Samach Hey Amud Aleph, 10 lines from the top at the 2 dots. Continuing on with the halachas of a shikar, someone's a shasu yain, about davening, whether he can or can't daven, and under what circumstances. Rabbi Chanina says, Kol hamapik magin b'shas gaiva, saygim v'chaisim tzoras ba'adoi. He says that if a person, when he is shasu, when he drank wine, at the time that he is intoxicated from wine, if he doesn't daven, he puts the tefillah to the side, he doesn't daven in that state, then then soros that would have come to him as a schar for having the proper kavod, l'shem shamayim, not davening in that state, then the troubles, the tzoras, they close up and seal the tzoras on his account for him. Shenemar, it says in the pasuk, so literally the pasuk is referring to Lev Yosim. It says that his gaiva, his pride, comes from his strong shields. Apikim meganim, from his strong shields, which are his scales, the scales that cover his body, that are closed and they are sealed tightly against his body. But we darshan it that gaiva, and if a person's in a state of gaiva, is in a state of intoxication, apike magan maginim, if he is, then he removes, he puts to the side the tefillah, which would be a shield for him. Sagar v'chaisim tsar. The tsaras that would come to him are closed and sealed. So it closes up and removes the tefillahs that would come to him. Where do we see that the loshon of apike, we're saying that it says gaiva apike, that apik in this context means that he puts to the side his tefillah. He doesn't daven. Where do we see that the loshon of apike is a loshon davur, the bypassing? Dirshu, it says, Achai bagdu k'moy nachal, kafikim necholim yavoru. It says that his brothers have betrayed him like a nachal, like a stream. Kafikim, like afikim necholim yavoru, like the streams that move and they flow away. And it goes away. It goes away. It moves to the side. So that shows you that a pikim is that it goes away. He bypasses the tefillah. He doesn't daven when he's in the state of the gaiva, and therefore the tzoras are chosim v'soger ba'adoi. Rav Yochanan Amar kol she'ino mapik itmar. Rav Yochanan says it's essentially the same idea, that he doesn't daven in a state when he's shasu, when he drank wine, but he teaches it different. The interpretation, translation is somewhat different. It says kol she'ino mapik itmar. That mapik means a loshon of mapik, to express, to say out the davening. It says kol she'ino mapik. What it means is that in the state of gaiva, that he is not mapik, he doesn't daven, he doesn't express out the tefillah, and then he has his troubles are closed, it's sealed, he doesn't have these tzoras. So therefore he teaches the pasuk in that way. My mashal mapik lishon the gluye. Where do you see the loshon of mapik means to reveal, to express? Dirshu v'yaro apikim mayim v'gol Moses tevel. It says by Kriyas Yamsuf that Ve'yeroa Apike Maim, the channels of the water were revealed. So you see that apik means that it's revealed, that it's expressed. And it says V'gola Mosei Tevel, the foundations of the world were revealed. So according to Rav Yochanan, it's the same idea. He doesn't daven at the time of intoxication, but he teaches it somewhat differently. Rav Yochanan teaches it as follows: Gaiva Afikim Meginim. Gaiva in state of intoxication, apikim meginim, that the davening, the tefillah, which is normally expressed, sogor, if he now closes, he doesn't daven because he's in a state of intoxication, chaysim tsar, that seals the tsar. So the difference is, in the sogor, according to Rav Yochanan, the sogor is part of the first part of the pasuk, what it means is referring to, he closes, it's soger, the tefillah, he closes up the tefillah. According to Rav Chanina, the soger means, the soger is chosim tsar, the tzaras are closed and sealed. The closing, according to Rav Chanina, is referring to the tzaras. The tzaras are closed. According to Rav Yochanan, the soger is referring to he closes his tefillah, the tefillah, because he learns that meginim is an expression. And the soger means he closes, he doesn't express it, he doesn't daven. That's why Tosfos Rabbeinu Peretz explains it. So it could be taiched either way. It could be mashma either way. My beinai, what's enough kamina with your taiched this way or that way? Gemara says ik beinai the Rosheshes. Enough kamina al halacha. According to the following a sheet of Rosheshes. The Rosheshes Masa Shin Sulasham. Rav Sheshes, when he was intoxicated to the point where he didn't want to daven, then he put his shamas as a shomer for him, and he told him to wake him up when it came time for davening. Mar isli the Rav Sheshes, Mar lesli the Rav Sheshes. So according to Rav Yochanan, then he agrees with Rav Sheshes. He agrees with him. Mar lesli the Rav Sheshes. But Rav Chanina, he disagrees. Rav Chanina says that the afike means you have to put it to the side. Then you have to put it to the side, meaning therefore you have to make sure that you can daven only if you are in a state of, you're clear-headed, that you were able to wake up on your own. When you woke up on your own, then you're cleared from the intoxication. But if it's put to the trust of your shamis, and he woke him up, as Rav Sheshes did, according to Chanina, that would not be sufficient. Because according to Chanina, he still would be considered to be in a state of intoxication. It's according to Rav Chanina, the pasuk is saying that you have to put your tefillah aside. It is that we say that the pasuk says gaiva apike beginim. You have to put it to the side, meaning put it to the side until he's clearly not intoxicated. He woke up from his sleep on his own. According to Rav Yochanan is that you close it up, meaning that which you express, soger, it's closed. It's not mashma that it's putting it away and putting it aside, so therefore, if he even is woken up by the shamas, that would be sufficient. He would be able to daven. So therefore, Tosfos explains that according to Rav Chanina, that means is that if he didn't wake up on his own, and even if it would mean that he'd be over the Zman Tefillah, and the Zman Tefillah would pass, nevertheless, he does not daven. According to Rav Yochanan, then he can entrust it to the shamas. The shamas wakes him up before the end of Zman Tefillah, and he can daven. According to Rav Chanina, he can't. And even if that means that he's not going to be able to daven if he passes Zman Tefillah, nevertheless, he does not daven. But Tosfos says, Einira, it does not seem that it's likely that this is halacha, that the halacha is like Rav Chanina. It's not mistaber that we pass him like Rav Chanina in this regard. Any person whose mind is not settled, if he's not settled, if he has troubles, something is bothering him, he shouldn't daven, because that will interfere with his davening. His Torah, he has trouble, so he shouldn't daven. Mishum shenemer batzar al yair. It says a person, he has troubles, al yair, he shouldn't paskin halachas. So therefore we say that just like we shouldn't paskin halachas because his mind is not clear, then he shouldn't daven because he won't have the proper kavona. So the Shulchan Aruch paskins that was only in those days when people davened and they had the proper full concentration. Nowadays, when we don't have that level of kavana, in any event, we don't have that level of kavana, therefore it's not applicable. But in those days when they did, then a person who has soros, his mind is preoccupied, and he's for numen, he shouldn't daven, he doesn't have the proper kavana. Rashi points out that this is not a pasuk anywhere. There's no pasuk that says batzar al yaira, that when a person is troubled, he shouldn't pasuk. And he said perhaps it's from the Sefer Ben Sira. Tosfos points out, in any event, it says batzar al yaira, he shouldn't pasuk. It doesn't say al yispalel. And even if we do want to make a comparison, but it's a little bit l'chayre, it's a little bit difficult because a person needs kavana, he has to be able to concentrate, but it's not so clear that it needs the same clarity of mind, even in those days, for paskening the halacha as to have kavanah, not to be distracted, and be able to have the proper kavanah. Al kolpanim, the memory is that in those days, that if a person had tzaras, then he shouldn't daven because it will interfere with his kavanah. Rav Chanina b'yom derasach le'maslei, in the day that he became angry, he didn't daven because also he didn't have the proper kavanah. Amar batzar al yeriksi. Marukva b'yom deshusa loyhai loyhavenavik lebeidin. Marukva, on the day that there was a south wind, he didn't go to Bezdin to paskin. It was a strong wind, stormy wind, and it bothered him, and it affected his clarity of thinking. So he didn't go to the Bezdin to paskin. Amrav Nachman bar Yitzchak hilchasa boya etzilusa b'yom distana. To paskin the halacha, the paskin and the din, it requires to have the clarity of mind, like the day when there's a north wind. When the day when there's a north wind, that it's pleasant and it's calm, and then he has the clarity of mind to come to the conclusion to paskin the halacha. Amar Abayi Amrli Eim Krivi Kutcha. Abayi gave an example of what clarity that you have, that you can't be disturbed and bothered by anything. He said if his mother would ask him to bring some kutach, that was a dish that was mixed with milk and breadcrumbs, loitanoi, he would not be able to learn with the same concentration. That would be on his mind. Even that little tiny chore, it would be on his mind. It would distract him. He said if he was bitten by lice, he wouldn't be able to learn with the same concentration. His mother used to make him 7 sets of clothing, 1 for each day, so that the lice he wouldn't be affected by the lice. He would have clean, fresh clothing. The lice come when the clothing is not clean and it's remained for a period of time. She would ensure that he had changes of clothing for every day so that he would be affected and bitten by the lice, and which would not, therefore he would not be disturbed by his learning. Therefore, he would not be disturbed in his learning. His concentration would not be disturbed. He said another example of the clarity that you need, that the night is for sleeping, and the daytime is for learning. The Tosfos says this is referring to the nights, the short nights, the summer nights, the nights of Tammuz, where the nights are short. That's for sleeping, and the daytime is for learning. The moon's light, the light from the moon, was there for people to be able to learn. They would have the light from the moon. So he's saying that, therefore, the nighttime is appropriate for learning. People told Rosera that your teachings are very sharp, but clear and sharp. You said, because I learned in the daytime when I had the clarity of mind. She asked him, don't you want to sleep a little bit, to go ahead and take a nap? He said to her, he said, days are coming which are long, and long days for sleeping, short for learning, and we'll be able to sleep a long period of time. Meaning, he said to her that the day will come, the time will come, Achar Misa, we'll be able to sleep a long period of time. Now is the time, and when we're alive, and now is the time for learning. We're considered day workers by day, not by night. We're considered workers by day, then meaning we learn during the day. Rav Bar Yaakov Yosef Upara. On a separate note, Rav Bar Yaakov Yosef, he had a set amount that he would have to learn. If he got distracted, if there were other things in the day that he had to deal with, and he was not able to learn the set amount that he set aside for himself, he would borrow, so to speak, literally borrow and pay back. So the next day, he would make up for it. He would make up for it and learn extra the next day. So again, continuing on with the same idea that in those days they had complete concentration. He said that a person was traveling, and in those days traveling was very unsettling and very difficult, and therefore before he davens, he should wait for 3 days, to clear his mind, and should be able to have the proper concentration. Shenemar, it says by Ezra, Va'ikapsem elanor abo elahava. He said he gathered the people by the river, by the bank of the river. He gathered the people, and then it says v'nachnu sham shlish yom v'avinu ba'am. It says they camped for 3 days. They rested for 3 days, so they were traveling. Then they had appeared. Then he said after that he examined the nation, examined the people. He checked them over, and for the whole procedure that went over there, and to be matayar, they separate those who were impure from their yichus, etc. But he only did this examination after they rested for 3 days. So you see that the mind is not clear after a journey. It takes 3 days to clear the mind after a journey, specifically in those days where it was so difficult. When he came from traveling from the road, he didn't daven for 3 days. Shmuel was so sensitive, and his concentration was so strong that if you'd be in a house where he would smell beer, even the smelling of the beer would affect his concentration. He didn't daven. And Rapapa was bothered by the smell of the fish, the harsana. They had a type of machal with fish and oil and flour. That used to bother him, so it affected his concentration. He didn't daven in a house that had that. Amar Rav Chanina, kol hamispata b'yena yesh bo midas kaina. Someone did something wrong to him, did an avla to him. He drinks some wine and then he's appeased, he's Michael, he forgets about it, he has from the das of the Rebbeinu Shalom. So we see something very similar. Shenemar vayar Hashem es reach hanichayach, vayarach Hashem es reach hanichayach. It says that the Rebbeinu Shalom vayarach, he smelled the reich hanichayach after the chet of the mabul, after the punishment of the mabul. Noach brought the korbanos. Vayarach Hashem smelled the smell of the korban, and it says then he was appeased, and he made a yeshua never to destroy the world again. So you see that Reach was making an analogy of drinking and the smelling, that Rebbeinu Shalom smelled the Reach of the Chayach, and he got appeased. Similarly, a person drinks the wine, he drinks wine and he gets appeased, and he's Moichal, he has midas kaina. As we see previously, that Shmuel smelled the wine, so it had effect somewhat of drinking. Here also, Vayarach Hashem, so it's like effect of drinking. If a person drinks something that appeases him and he is Moichal, is Eish midas kaina. Amar Rav Chia, kol hamisyasha b'yeinayim. If a person drinks and he gives him a clear mind, meaning he drinks, and the drinking is not to get shikr, but he drinks and it's able to clear his mind and to think clearly and to have insights that perhaps he wouldn't have had otherwise. Yesh bo das ein zakenim. He has a das of 70 judges. Where do we see this? Yayin niten ba'ainoisius. The gematria of Yayin, so Yud is 10, and another Yud, and Nun is 50 is 70. V'Soid niten ba'ainoisius. And the gematria of Soid, Samach is 60, Vav is 6, and Dalet is 4. Again, it's 70. So they have the same gematria. Nichnas Yayin, the also Soid. So if the wine comes in, it displaces what's there before, it displaces the side comes out. Omar Rabbi Chanan said, wine was created. What was the purpose of the creation of wine? Is for nichmavela, to comfort the Rachmanis Lan and and to reward the Rasha, to reward him, that he gets his reward in the pleasures of Olam Hasa, not Olam Haba. Shenemar, we see the pasuk in Mishlei says, "Nu sheikha lo'ived," give sheikha that intoxicates. Lo'ived, give it to a Rasha. So that's given to the Rasha. U'leyayin lemari nafesh, and the person that is bitter of soul, the ovel, and give the wine for the ovel. Omar Rabbi Chanan bar Papa kol she'ein yain nishbach b'sayit basic kamayim. Any house where there's not an abundance of wine, it's not poured literally like water, it's not included in the bracha. A house that has a bracha is where a person is generous and there's an abundance of wine, which is a source of bracha. So, Shenemar, when we see this, it says, Oberach haslach mecha v'esmei mecha. The pasuk says that you'll have a bracha in your bread and in your water. So it compares the two. So what is the water that we're referring to over here? Now it says a comparison between the two. Bread is something that you can purchase with the money of Meiser Sheni. If a person has Meiser Sheni, and it's too difficult to take it up to Yerushalayim, so he redeems it for money, he exchanges it for money, and takes that money to Yerushalayim, and with that money he buys food. What can he buy? He buys bread. So the beverage that we're talking about over here is also something that he can buy with the money of Meiser Sheni, but that's not water. You can't, with the money of Meiser Sheni, you cannot purchase water. So therefore we say, Ma lechem shenika b'kesav meiser, af mayim shenika b'kesav meiser. So the beverage, the drink that we're talking about here, is something that can be purchased with the money of Meiser Sheni, umayniu, and what is that? That's yain. That's wine. V'kekorle mayim, and it's called mayim. So therefore, what do we mean? Why are we calling the wine water? To show you that it should be, when we're talking in the context of this pasuk berach that's talking about a bracha, it's wine that is similar to water. Water is flowing, it pours, it flows abundantly. So where is the bracha? That's if the wine flows in abundance like water. That's where there's the bracha. You can test and the person's true character is revealed in the following three ways. With a cup of wine, meaning if he drinks and he doesn't get shaker and he's still settled, then you can see what type of person is. With his money, if he deals honestly. And with his anger, he doesn't get angry. And some say even with his laughter, meaning he doesn't laugh in a way that is mevayish himself. He doesn't laugh in a way that he doesn't have Meir Shamayim, with uncontrolled laughter. So in these ways, you can test and see the person's character, his true character is revealed.